Now we're going to have a look at disassembling your bolt head and all the parts inside of it. There's a few parts that you need to become familiar with. One is the rollers. Okay, you can see the rollers. Those are the little ball-shaped things right here. The next thing is your extractor, which is this piece right here. It's got the hook on it right there for your brass. That's your extractor. This little round cotter key looking thing is your extractor spring. That right there is your bolt roller retaining plate roll pin, and right inside of the bolt head right there you can kind of make out the bolt roller locking and the bolt roller lever. Bolt roller retaining plate, as I was. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take your extractor off. If you notice that spring, it has a little round circle right there. Okay, all you're going to do is take like a stainless steel pick or something sharp and pointy, stick it inside of that spring's hole, and rotate it 180 degrees. Once it's rotated 180 degrees, it just pulls right out. Just pulls right out, just like that. That leaves you with your extractor. And your extractor just comes right out, just like that. Okay, here's your extractor. You'll notice it has the hook for your brass, and it has these grooves on the side of it. Okay, those grooves made up with these grooves right here. Okay, that hole right here is where your extractor spring goes. Okay, so now you have your extractor spring and your extractor out. Next thing we're going to concentrate on is the rollers. To take the rollers out, you have a roller retaining plate inside of it. That roller retaining plate is held into the bolt head by this roll pin right here. So all we have to do to pull all of this out is knock this roll pin down inside of the bolt head. Now, there's a little trick I like to use. Sometimes whenever you punch this in, it has a tendency to shoot out the back of the bolt head. So take you a little piece of Scotch tape, or whatever kind of tape you got handy, stick it over that hole in the back of the bolt head, and that will keep your pin from flying across the room. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to knock that little pin right there down inside of the bolt head. A 1/16 inch pin punch works perfect for this. And all you have to do is just center it onto that roll pin and hammer that pin down inside of the bolt head. Okay? Once that pin falls down inside of the bolt head, pull your punch out, tilt it backwards a little bit, peel your tape off, and the tape should hold your little roll pin. Not too hard, really. Pretty simple. And then your rollers and your roller retaining plate just falls out the side of the bolt head. Okay? There's your rollers and your roller retaining plate. One thing that's very important to all of this, on your rollers, you're going to notice that there's two sides to it. You're going to have a side that's flat and flush. Okay? Too much zoom. This side's flat, and the other side has a recess in it. Okay? What that's for is this roller retaining plate. These two little tits right here, right inside of that recess, and they keep the rollers from backing out. You have two sides to your plate. You have dimples right here where a machine pressed the nipples out, and then on this side you have the nipples. The nipples just rest inside of that roller recess like that, and they keep that roller from coming out of the bolt head. I guess you can see the little tits on that plate. Anyway, if this part breaks quite often, every time that locking piece goes in and pushes them rollers out, this piece flexes. So if you have to replace that piece or these two rollers, let's say you had a low bolt gap and you wanted to restore some headspace to your rifle, and you wanted to install some oversized rollers, all you have to do is take this bolt head, have it facing up where the hole for that roll pin is facing up, take your rollers and you have the recesses pointing up, and you want to take the retaining plate where the little tit is facing down and riding in that recess, and you take one roller and your plate, make sure that the tit is inside of that recess, and you just install it into the side of your bolt head. It doesn't matter what side, either side will work. Once you get it in there, ease that roller in a little bit with your pin punch. Get it to where it goes inside of that bolt head, and you can install your second roller. Okay? Once you get it close enough, install your second roller and push the pair in as a set, and kind of center them up with your fingers right here. Okay? Once you get to this point, I'm going to show you a little trick. If you take your locking piece and insert it into the back of the bolt head and push, it centers those rollers up because it spreads the rollers. Not only does it spread the rollers, but it also centers the hole in that bolt roller retaining plate with the hole here in the bolt head, so when you drive the pin back in, that plate is centered up, and you don't stand a chance of breaking the plate because the hole's off center. Plus, this locking piece keeps you from driving that pin too far inside of the bolt head. If you were to install that pin without the locking piece in and it drove down inside, the locking piece might not be able to go all the way forward whenever the bolt system's assembled. So whenever you drive a new pin in, make sure your locking piece is inserted and you'll be good to go. So next thing we're going to do is take your roll pin. You're going to notice that thing's very, very, very small. And it's kind of hard to get it started, you know, because it's so small. So what I like to do is I like to take this stainless steel pick right here and just insert it into the center of that roll pin and let the pick hold the roll pin. Okay? That'll allow you to center it on that hole right there and get it started. The pick is angled, so whenever you hammer on it, it'll start that roll pin. You don't want to put too much pressure on it. You just want to get that roll pin started, and this pick works great. So you just give it a couple of taps until that roll pin starts, okay? And then you rotate your pick out of that pin, and what you have left is you have the little pin sticking up, right? But it's started. So now, make sure you put pressure on the back side of that locking piece to spread them rollers, and you just finish set that pin with your hammer. Okay? It's okay if that pin doesn't go flush. It can stick up and it's not going to hurt anything. The most important part is that you have this locking piece inserted into the bolt head whenever you seat that. Otherwise you could drive that pin in way too far. Once the pin's in, the rollers no longer fall out. They're held in place by that locking plate, and the locking plate is held in place by that locking pin, the little roll pin right there. Okay? So that's all there is to changing your rollers. The last thing you got to do is reinstall your extractor. You're going to know which way the extractor works, because there's really only one way to put it in the bolt head. The extractor has, well, too much zoom. The extractor has these slots right here, and your bolt head has these notches right here. Okay? It's kind of hard to put it in. I guess you could put it in backwards like that. Well, maybe not even that way. But it's kind of hard to put it in backwards. It only really goes in one way. Okay? You're going to know if you have it right if this little circle area is facing the face of the bolt head. Once your extractor is inserted, it just drops into place. Just like that. Okay? Now you have this hole right here. Okay? This hole's where your extractor spring goes. Your extractor spring is angled. Okay? It doesn't really matter which way you do it. Okay? But the way I like to do it is I like to insert it into the bolt head with the angle facing down. Well, that's hard to see. Okay, and then you just give it a little tap until it's flush, and you just finish seat it with your pick. Or if the pick don't work, you just take your punch and push it the rest of the way in. You'll know when it goes in because it'll snap in there. Once that snaps in there, you'll notice it's recessed in this hole right here. And that's all there is to reassembling your bolt.